be relentless. That Paul will not be afraid of what man says about him. He will follow what I say. For he is a zealous man, as he describes himself. He was zealous for God, and he is zealous for Christ, to the point that he was ready to die at any time for Jesus. Not like Peter was. Not like how John and Thomas talked, or Nathan or Philip talked. No, Paul was ready that if this be the day, so shall it be today. That's the kind of guy Paul is. So when commentators say that Paul was afraid of his life, it's kind of to be wrong. Because if you understand in chapter 14, Paul just died. They stoned this man, and he died. So Paul was never afraid of death or of the Jews. When God comes to Paul and speaks to Paul, he understands that Paul is warring inside of himself, that he's ready to leave the city. And Paul he felt bad about how he was feeling. He felt afraid about it. I want to stay here. I want to keep pushing. Have you ever felt that war in yourself? When you help a relative out so much, you want to help them out, you tried your best, but they keep rejecting you, and you just, you feel that guilt, like, if I keep going on. That's how Paul was feeling about the church of Corinthians. He was feeling about Corinthians, like, I want to say, and God said, be not afraid of why you feeling, Paul. God is not angry because we want to leave a project, or that we want to abandon a leadership, or that we want to stop a task. He does not get angry with us. He said, be not afraid, but speak, Paul. But speak on your experience to the people. Tell them how it feels. Tell them how you deal with it. Because Paul was not ready to leave God or leave the faith. Paul was just ready to leave the project. Some of you don't want to leave God. Some of you want to abandon that project or that task or what God puts in front of you because it's not going as planned. And Paul knew it was a test of his character. And God said, be not afraid, but speak and do not keep silent. Do not keep silent on what you're going through, Paul. Explain to them the pains and the turmoils. Explain to them what you're suffering. Explain to them that they may be encouraged to keep on going on. Because if they hear it from you, who was once against me and now for me, if they hear it from you, maybe they would take heart to it and begin to believe. Maybe that when things go tough, they would continue to go on. If they hear someone speak about, sometimes I just feel like giving up. Sometimes I just feel like running away. Sometimes I just can't keep. I just don't want to be a mother no more. Sometimes I don't want to be a husband or a wife no more. I don't want to be a friend no more. I don't want to be, hey, God said there's nothing wrong with that because I understand you. Some people leave and have desires to go back. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And some people stay and have desires to leave. God gave me this lesson personally. He showed me myself as he gave me the topic. God told me to do a few things and even start this ministry up. It doesn't seem like it's going nowhere to me. In my mind, it seems like it's not going nowhere. But he said, Paul, would you stay with me? The church that I'm at, I feel as though it's not giving me what I need. And he says, Paul, would you stay with me? It's a book that I wrote in the beginning of the year, and I got my first royalty check. It's $14, and then he told me to write another book, and then I wrote that book, and then he said, don't send it out, just hold on to it. Paul, I got a third book for you, I got a fourth book for you, I got a fifth book for you. And I said, I had this in myself, I'm ready to leave. I don't want to be in you. I just can't do this no more. And he said, Paul, would you stay with me? Knowing that you want to leave. He said, would you stay with me? Knowing that you want to leave. I know how it feels to want to leave because it's not getting results. God said, just hold on a little while longer. He says, Paul, be not afraid, but speak. Keep not thy silence. He says, before I am with you. It may not seem that I am with you, but I am with you. I know that sometimes that at night when you lay down in your bed and you can't sleep, because you're wondering if I'm hearing your prayers or that if I'm answering your prayers. And you're probably sitting in your job wondering what you're going to do about your bills. You're probably wondering why I told you to quit your job, why I told you to stop doing what you're doing, why I told you to move from your friends, why I told you. It seems as if it's not going right. And God told me, he said, Paul, would you stay? He says, I know it's hard for you to stay with me. I understand you. And Paul, I feel him. Now think about all that Paul went through. All that Paul suffered. God was telling him each and every day when things came up. When his mind raced with thoughts of leaving. How we all feel. He kept saying, Paul, would you stay with me? Even though you desire to leave, I'm not getting mad at that you want to leave. I'm just asking, would you stay with me a little while longer? Jesus says, tarry with me a little while longer while I go and pray. He said, pray to be with me for a little while longer. I'm almost there. Had Paul left Corinthians, he would not have saved many people. He said, for I had many in this city. I had many who's ready to convert. If you just stay in Thessalonians, Paul, if you just stay in Corinthians, if you just stay and not leave this project alone, if you just stay, many will be saved. And because Paul stayed in Corinthians, Paul has given us the gifts, the 8 gifts in Corinthians. He gave us a whole chapter on love. He begins to describe how our government works and how God wants us to obey us. He begins to tell us how women ought to worship and how men ought to worship in chapter 11. He begins to tell us how he visited heaven and how he saw things that no man, it was unlawful for a man to speak. He began to show us great things that in Corinthians because he stayed there. Have you realized that out of all Paul books, there are only 2 books that they have 2 sections to them? 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. These are Paul's only books. Besides Timothy, it was personal with Timothy. He didn't personal with Timothy. I'm talking about first in churches. It shows the sign of a second chance, a sign of a second go around. It's kind of I kept on going on even though I wanted to leave. And God understands. He said, I know it's hard to keep pushing when there's opposition and resistance. I know, Paul, that these people are getting nervous. God says, I know that you're trying to figure out why. I know that people are rising against you. I know that your friends are turning against you. Your children are rebelling against you. God says, just keep going on with me. If you keep going on with me, I will begin to show you more. I will begin to reveal to you that which I desire to give you. God says, if you keep on going, have Paul stop, he would have lost a lot of things. He knew that if I keep the race, think about what Paul said, if I keep running the race, I will get that prize. I will get that crown. Let's turn to 2 Corinthians.